This is the day that we've been waiting for, really. We have been doing all this work for all these weeks so you can get to where you are right now, which is to actually play the game. It's to actually do the things that we're talking about. And really, there's going to be two approaches to this. So when you want to use social media for sales, it's really ultimately about increasing the frequency in which you can engage people, prospects, ideal clients, to have more sales conversations. Now, all the things that we've done really add up to where we're at right now. Like I just said, we made your profile look good. We figured out what it is that people like about you and who your ideal client is. We talked about creating FAQ articles that can help them down their buyer's journey. Then this week, we've talked about generating leads, being able to find prospects that you can put into your social network, and then getting more referrals that you can put into your social network. And then finally, we start talking about these other ways that we can create content. So using Feedly and some of the other activities that we talked about. So now, if you do these things, and of course, tomorrow's lesson is all about putting up together your weekly execution plan. If you do this on a regular basis, then what happens is you've created this engine that's attracting prospects, is putting more people into your social networks. And as you share things and you focus on engaging and not just content, then you're going to have more conversations. A lot of these are social conversations, and a lot of them are just going to naturally turn into business relationships. But there's a couple ways you can go about this to really focus on scaling the sales conversations, because that's really our ultimate goal, is to take all this extra engagement and turn it into productive sales opportunities. So we're helping service their needs, right? So what we're going to talk about today really is two approaches to social selling. And it's really if we were to say this is a game, like what's the game of social selling? This is kind of the two ways you can do it. And so the first one here is becoming the biggest target. And I've got a lot of text here on the screen, but I really want to make sure this is ultra clear. So I know a lot of times I just ad lib and talk to you guys from my heart. This one I wanted to make sure I say it correctly, and so I've written it out. And it says becoming their biggest target. That's our goal. Let me just talk about what we're talking about. So if I often think of like people who are hunting for an elk, and there's all these hunters out in the woods, and they're kind of looking down on this valley, and there are deer down there, or there are elk down there, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, which is the biggest one? Which is the one that I can put on my wall that's got the biggest antlers? Really what we're talking about is who is the most obvious, best solution for me. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And that's this metaphor, which is through all of this engagement you're creating, you want your prospects, the people who, whether it's personal lines or commercial, when they have insurance related questions or needs and they look around, you are the obvious largest target. Like you're the most obvious choice, the one that they're most drawn to. That's kind of the approach that we're talking about here. So let's look at this a little bit closer. So we say become the biggest target. If you actively and consistently do all the things we've outlined in this training program, you can become a powerful influencer in the lives of the people within your social network. When they have questions about insurance, there's a much greater probability that they will turn to you to get the answers. And then the more you serve them, the more you will receive requests from them for your help. So in tomorrow's lesson, we will outline a weekly planner that you can follow to actively and consistently engage your audience. So there's kind of a couple of bulleted points here that I really want to focus on. Okay, and the first one is, this is all about serving your network. Take time regularly to give with no ask in return, wherever your target audience spends their time online. For example, in addition to sharing high value content on your social profiles, which is going to show up in their timeline as they check things out, you're also going to want to find things like social media groups that include your target market. So if we know where they're hanging out online and where they're spending time, then we want to engage there where you can truly serve and help others. Some people within these groups will value your contributions and seek you out. So we're sharing this content so they see it's valuable. We're giving in places, it's not just a bait and switch. It's not just saying, I'll serve, but really this link is a trick that brings you back into my world. Like, we're just genuinely helping people out in these spaces. And there's lots of different groups out there that we can do that on Facebook and on LinkedIn and some of the other social networks. So what we want to do now is we just want to serve them. We've got this great online presence. We're systematically adding new people into our social network, and we want to start showing up in their lives in multiple places. So they might see our content in the timeline. When they share things and we comment on their stuff, they're seeing us there. But if we're also aware of the groups or places that they frequent, and they could be community-based, they could be industry-based, then when we show up in there, and we're not just saying, hey, let me, sell you some insurance, but we're actually just genuinely, organically adding to the conversations that are going on there, then we become an influencer or an important contributor in those spaces. And so that's going to be an activity that you do on a regular basis. And when you do all those things, that's just more opportunities, more touch points for them to say, hey, there's the guy that can really help me. So the first bullet here is this one, to serve the people in your network. Do that, just serve. And then also thank and serve your existing referral partners. Pay extra attention to your existing referral partners. Serve and engage them regularly to show your interest in them and to stay top of mind. So they will send you more referrals in the future, right? So if you've got people that have already been recommending you and giving you referrals, then we want to make sure that we're using our social media to really engage with them. So if they have a blog, we're following it on Feedly. So that way, whenever they post stuff, we see it and we can reshare it or we can engage them. We're following them in their social networks. So if they're really active on Facebook and they got a business page, then that's one that we're going to really pay attention to, and we're going to respond to that on a regular basis so we are present in their life. Okay, we're just using social media to pinpoint these different people who are important to us so that way we can be seen. And then finally, what we want to do right here is we want to take conversations offline whenever possible. Social media is a great conversation starter. However, taking conversations from social media to direct communication, meaning email or phone or in person, is your ultimate goal. Now, this part here is pretty easy for those of us who are digital immigrants, right? We like to talk to people. We'd rather have a phone call or an in-person conversation than to just do this all online. If you are a younger producer and you're more of the digital native personality, then this might be a little bit of a stretch for you, where you've got to just break out a little bit and put the phone down and say, oh, I could just do a quick text, and realize, oh, you know what? They're asking me a question. I can actually pivot this and turn it into a live conversation, either on the phone or in person, that's going to allow the relationship to evolve a lot faster. Because in real life, right, a couple minutes in conversation, we just feel so much more connected than we ever can through a couple of exchanges in the messenger apps and things like that. So you're going to look for opportunities to go offline. And the thing that I want to point out with this is that this first part is really about you just executing and then people taking notice. For example, when I was working for one large carrier and I was building a personal lines social media marketing program, as this national program, and it got a lot of attention, then there was another carrier that noticed that, and they reached out to me and they said, hey, we want to build a commercial program. Are you interested in that? And it was about an 18 months of them showing interest in me, where I finally said, you know what? I think I'll take a look at this. And that's when I moved from one carrier to the other, because the opportunity came to me. They saw me on LinkedIn. I've had countless students in this program that will say, Brett, you know what? I kind of put all this stuff together so that way I could find more prospects and things like that. But I've also noticed as other insurance agencies are now recruiting me, that they're reaching out to me and they're offering me opportunities that are exciting. And so one of the things that's going to happen is, it's going to evolve, not just building up your book, but also your long-term career. And so the opportunities that are going to come to you because you are executing so much more effectively than the rest of your peers. So be the target. That's a great thing to be here, is you want to be the biggest target. The second thing that we want to talk about here is that we want to make sure that we understand the gameplay. And so the other approach to this is you need to target your most important connections. Identify, connect with, and engage the specific people who can help you grow your business the fastest. Rather than only focusing on prospects that you can sell a policy to, focus on potential referral partners that can introduce you to many prospects. So whenever you can, you're going to do these three things. First, we want to find and engage our referral partners. There are many people who can provide you with an ongoing supply of prospects. Focus a portion of your leads generation activities on these types of connections. Serve and nurture these relationships. For example, auto dealers and realtors can be great referral sources for personal line prospects. Accountants and business attorneys, I would say like franchisors, they can be great referral sources for small commercial prospects. One of the activities I think you're really going to enjoy is the leads generation tool. Every week you can find all of these new leads and you can add them to your social networks. Don't just focus on the specific people that you want to insure. Really think about, are there organizations or businesses, if you can start connecting with auto dealers and building a relationship with them, so then when anyone comes and buys a car, then you can vie for that position of being a referral for them, then that's just going to be great. And it might be that they already have kind of that person that they choose, but if all of a sudden over time, over the next 3 to 6 months, they're just so impressed by you because of the presence and the engagement that you've provided, then you're going to have opportunities to take some of those spots. So it really is a key thing for you to realize that when we target people that can get us in front of the people that we want to get in front of, that is going to really multiply the opportunities. I'll give you an example of this. When I was first figuring social media out, so I haven't really told you guys a lot about my history, but I worked in the semiconductor manufacturing industry and I was a technical communicator. And out of college, I was documenting software and helping people understand. I used to create those little help things where you click help and it pops up, and they don't use them that much anymore. It was like this little help system. Well, anyways, while I was doing that, I started buying real estate. I started buying on the side, and eventually I was making way more money buying and selling real estate on the side than I was my day job. And so I quit my day job and I effectively became a full-time real estate investor. But during that time, I also started a website consulting business, and I was building websites primarily for realtors. Well, eventually what happened is the market crashed. If you remember like the 2008 era, the market crashed. And by the time it crashed, I actually, I was in over my head, right? As far as everything. I owned a tile and granite franchise. I had this real estate website consulting business, and I was heavily invested in what I called exurban real estate. So it's kind of retirement community kind of stuff. And it all went like to bunk. It was a bad couple of years in my life. Well, out of the ashes from all of that, I discovered social media, and I was trying to figure out how can I replace this income that was now, gone from being very healthy to actually a pretty big loss. And I was discovering social media, I was learning about it, and I realized that the space of real estate and social media were two things that I had something to offer, because I build websites and I used to do SEO and search engine optimization, things like that, and I understood real estate. Well, I soon discovered that if I could use social media to help realtors be successful, then that could be an opportunity for me. Now, of course, it was several more years before the market kind of turned around, and they were sucking dirt for a while. But what came out of that was I built a social media marketing business, and I realized I need to get in front of realtors. How do I do that? Well, I had learned, and I had spent really about 18 months in this process, like reading every book I could. I remember reading Outliers, and it's this book by Malcolm Gladwell, and it talked about how if you're in the right place at the right time and as smart as the other smart people, you have more of an opportunity. And I thought, if I could get in front of the social media, then I might be, I don't know what it will turn into, but I could find some opportunities to help, and I think I could be successful. Well, in doing this, I discovered that in the world of real estate, they have realtor associations. And so you might be familiar with this, but they had CE credits just like you guys do, continuing education credits. And I realized that at the state level and the county level and at the national level, there was all this education. And so I thought, wow, what if I could use social media to build relationships with key people within the industry that could get me in front of other people? And I'll just share one example. So this is how I did it at the state level. I had built a solution. It was called it was the 30-minute social media solution. And it was how to do marketing with social media in 30 minutes a week for realtors. That was kind of my program. Well, I had a friend who's a realtor. She really liked the program I was doing. And I was talking about, well, how can I get in front of more people? And she said, oh, well, you really need to talk to our statewide educator. They have like this education person, a director of education, and they managed all that stuff. Well, I did a little research and I found out that for me to become a CE instructor, I would actually have to get this person to personally write a letter of recommendation because I didn't qualify. I wasn't a realtor. I didn't have some of these other things. I just needed their kind of bypass of the system for me to become a trainer. And so I did that. I went on to Facebook and I connected with them and I used our mutual friend as a connection. I said, hey, you know what? I've got a consulting business and social media for realtors and I like to learn more about what you guys are doing. And so I got connected with her. And of course, this was Facebook. And so on Facebook, it's kind of personal. And so we, over time, it was about a 3-month period where I shared content, that I was sharing and she was seeing it. And I was very focused in saying, okay, every week I'm going to pay attention to what are the things that this person is posting. And I'm going to appropriately become someone that they're familiar with. And so I did that. And it turns out we just had some things in common. And so because of those things in common, there was natural organic conversations about them. Both of our kids, for example, had a skin condition called eczema. And so it was just an easy way for us to kind of talk about some of the solutions we'd found. Well, after this had kind of marinated for a while, I realized, okay, I think it's time for me to, go in for the shot because I needed for her to recommend me so I could become this official CE instructor, teach classes, and then I also knew that as a state association, if I had her recommendation, then I could get into all of these county associations a lot easier. And so that's exactly what I did. I sent her a message and I said, hey, you know what? I'd love to come down to Olympia. I lived in a little town called Port Ludlow. It's about 2 hours away. I said, I'd love to come to your office, right? I didn't try to do this over the phone. I didn't try to do this through emails or messaging. I knew that this was a real appointment that needed to happen. And so I said, hey, can I come down and visit with you? I'd like to learn more about what you're doing and see if, maybe I could help out in some way. So we went down there, had this wonderful meeting, found out they were really, really in need of some technology related instructors. And so it was no problem. They were like, yeah, we'll write that letter for you. In fact, we worked together to create 5 courses. And so I created 5 CE courses, got them all approved through the state. And then because of that relationship, they then introduced me to all of the counties across the whole state. And I would say within 18 months of making that relationship, I was teaching 95% of the CE technology related classes. And it was funny back then, it was like, what is an iPad and how to use a smartphone? And, e-signature was just becoming a thing. And it was just this really fascinating. What is a blog? I remember I had a class on blogging. It was a 3.5-hour class on what is a blog and how to use it. And it was just this very, very, well, I think it's just a good example of it's not like we're just throwing out all this content and we're trying to get anyone. We are being very clear on who are the key relationships that we need to establish to be able to really move our career forward. And so I'd really invite you to think about that. Say, what are the people that if I had a strong relationship that are leaders in an industry or decision makers in front of a lot of people, that they're going to be able to move this forward. So that's really what we're talking about here is finding and engaging referral partners, finding people that can help you move things forward. Let's jump back here and look at a couple more bullets. Engaging your top prospects directly. So the other thing is yeah, we got referral partners and I think we covered that, but there are going to be some prospects that you're like, man, this is really my ideal prospect. What's going to happen is you're going to look for opportunities to directly engage your top prospects. And then you're going to pivot from commenting on the social post to private and direct communications, primarily via messenger services or maybe email whenever possible. So what am I talking about here? What happens is, let's say you're using the leads gen tool and the referral gen tool, and you're getting all these different people that are now in your social network. And you're sharing the content just like you're supposed to, and you're looking at that stuff. Let's say that you share a piece of content and it has some engagement, right? there are like 10 different people that are responding. Let's say it's only 5. You got 5 different people responding. Well, what you're going to notice there is that those different people, some of them are going to be those key contacts that you really had wanted to connect with, that you wanted to engage with. And yes, you can directly say, hey, I want to talk to you and audit your business. But what we're really trying to do here is build a relationship with them where they have some familiarity with me, that high proximity we talked about, and that likability. And then from there, with that relationship established, even though it's very thin and lightweight because social media doesn't create the same level of relationship as you can get in real life, but it starts there and it creates, we're not a cold call anymore. Well, what you're going to see there is you're going to see these comments and you're going to notice, you're going to say, oh, that third person that made a comment, that was one of the people I really, really was interested in. And so whether their comment is really that germane to everything else, you know that whenever they posted it in the last little bit, they saw your stuff. They were thinking about you and they commented. And so when you comment back and you engage them, and you can do that a number of ways. You can engage them in the commenting. You can say, and build on that, say, oh, I really appreciate that thought. And then you add on to that. You're basically thinking about, like, if you're at a conversation and there's someone there, an industry leader or whoever that person is that you want to engage, then you're going to stand in the circle where they're talking and different people will be saying things and they say something. We are going to want to engage them directly to really get their attention, to make that eye contact and to be able to start building that rapport. This is the exact same thing. So we see these different comments and we see someone there, we're going to respond to that. What I'm saying is it's perfectly okay to take that moment and turn it into a direct message. So what you can do, for example, in LinkedIn, they make a comment, you could then send them a direct message in LinkedIn that says, hey, I just wanted to share with you, and you don't have to say privately, but it is a private conversation. Now it's one-on-one. You say, I really appreciated the comment that you made in the post that I shared. And then you just start that conversation. Add them a follow-up question, things like that. And now what you've done is you've gone from this public kind of open conversation thing, and you've turned it into a one-on-one. And with that one-on-one, then you're sales, right? You know how to communicate with people, so you can start conversing with them. It also might be something they've posted. Maybe they share something, and then you respond, and then they respond to your response. Well, now's a great time to pivot and to take this into a one-on-one conversation. So again, you send them a direct message, and you say, hey, that post, I just wanted to share a little bit more here, but I didn't really want to share in front of everyone. And then you share whatever that thing is. Either way, you're fundamentally moving this from this general everyone kind of generic conversations to making it a little bit more direct and then taking it offline or taking it more on a one-on-one thing. And then from that one-on-one, when you start communicating email messages back and forth, now what happens is you can then try to move that towards an actual call or appointment. And that's what we're really trying to do here, is that we want to engage these top prospects directly. So when I say right here, pivot from commenting on social posts, meaning those general things for everyone, like, oh, that's really cool, or, wow, congratulations. What we're doing is we're taking that to the next level. And so that's important. That's what you got to do. And then, of course, again, this one has the same one as the last one, which is you need to take these conversations offline whenever possible. And so this is really that next step. So you engage these people, and then you have an opportunity to talk to them more directly one-on-one. We're just incrementing up this relationship with people where instead of being general, we're just slowly moving in. And what happens is you just don't go too fast, right? You have time. You have all these different prospects, and when you look at them and you start, some of them it's just going to be the strength of what they've shared that it just causes you to want to engage them. I remember, here's an example. I remember a long time ago, like 2009, probably 2010, I'd restored an old farmhouse, about a 1900 farmhouse in a little county called Jefferson County. Lived in a little area near, kind of between a town called Port Ludlow and Port Townsend in Washington. And it was this cool old house and remodeled it. And I had connected on social media with this woman who lived in Port Townsend. And I did it for a couple of reasons. Number one is she was really active in the community, so she had a political role. I can't remember exactly what it was. But she also was in marketing, and she was more of a traditional marketer. Well, what happened was, because we got connected on Facebook, she actually noticed I I think I'd shared some pictures of us remodeling the house, and she sent me a direct message and she said, hey, I just realized where you live. You know, we hadn't met each other yet. We were just kind of becoming friends a little bit with social media. But she said, when I was a kid, I used to eat waffles in that house. My best friend lived in that house, and I'm just amazed at what you've done with it. And it had nothing to do with the business side. It had to do with developing the relationship side. And so what we're doing here is we're just doing what you always do, right? Is we talk sports and weather and things that we have in common. It's just we're using social media to get in front of the right kinds of people, get them in a pool together so they're seeing our content, we're seeing their content, and then we're on a regular basis kind of looking through this and looking for opportunities for us to build relationships and to serve them, right? This isn't all about how can you help me. It's also about really genuinely giving. And one of the things that I've got to share with you guys, I made a separate video. It's down below. I don't want to say you don't have to watch it because then you won't watch it at all. But there's just a few more tips that I think are really good for effectively doing this. And so I would encourage you to watch the video down below. But it's just going to share with you a couple more ways to do this so it's ethical. And by ethical, I mean it really is about serving people. It's looking for opportunities to lift, looking for opportunities to say, you know what, I might be able to help you. I might be able to share something. I've got some resources you can, you know, it's whatever, it's just generally being a good person, using social media as an amplifier to find people within groups and within your community, or to focus on all these people, get them all together, and then you know that any of them are people that if you can help them, it's good because it's going to help them, but it's also going to be the right kinds of people to lift your online credibility. I hope this is making sense. It's so important that we do what I said at the very beginning, which is the focus is not content is king. Content is not king. If I sent you to a desert island and gave you the choice of taking your friends or your movies, you'd choose your friends. If you chose the movies, we'd call you a sociopath. Conversation is king. Content is just something to talk about. We are sharing this content so we can have conversation. And what we're doing is we are just packing the room with all of the right kinds of people, with all of our ideal clients, all of these prospects and existing clients and referral partners who it doesn't really matter who we have the conversation with. There are, of course, going to be some that we're really, really focused on, but all of a sudden our feed becomes filled with all of this engagement opportunities from all the right people. It's kind of like you've just filled your pond and now we're going fishing, right? And now it's just so great. It's just so fun. And I'm excited for you guys to be where you're at right now. I would love to hear about your wins. I would love to hear about your challenges. I hope you'll continue to be active in our online group and we can just grow this thing together. Now, there is one more day. So tomorrow's lesson is really the execution plan. And so tomorrow you've got this weekly planner that you're going to take all these things that you've learned and you're going to start mapping out the execution of these things. And so depending on where you're at, maybe you're at the part where you need to build a lot more people into, you got to get a lot more fish in your pond. Maybe you're at the point where you've got a lot of people in there and you really want to focus on sharing that content with them and then creating some engagement. Or maybe it's a combination of both. But anyways, you've got that tool, and tomorrow we'll talk all about it, that's going to give you what you need to start just really playing this game. And just remember, when you're playing this game, there's kind of two sides to it, right? One is being the target, and one of them is consciously taking time to look out and say, okay, which of these people do I want to create more engagement with? And do I want to take it into a direct conversation? And then what happens is, like, if you looked at my LinkedIn emails, my LinkedIn messaging is just chock full of all these different conversations with all these different people because I've just been moving them through this process. For you to have a business that is full of real meaning for you, not just selling policies, but engaging these people and serving them and building powerful relationships, social media is such a powerful amplifier to do that. So that's it for our lesson right now. If you want, go ahead and there'll be that other video down below. You can watch that one and we'll cover a few final tips and tricks to help you really make the most of doing this. But this is the core part of our lesson for today.